Walk.
Good morning and welcome to Friday, February 9th on Radio Row, where we're getting ready for the San Francisco 49ers to take on the Kansas City Chiefs this Sunday. We're talking about a big battle, and we're here with two people who are going to talk about an even bigger battle. That's mental health and neuroscience. Dr. Jetali and Darrell Booker, thank you for joining us today. Would you please take a moment and introduce yourselves?
Cheers, I'm Dr. Jetali Bellanton. I'm a neuropsychologist with a focus on mental and financial health. And we've been working with a lot of athletes and influencers in order to make sure that they are financially in a better position.
And I'm Darrell Booker, representing Microsoft Philanthropy, supporting nonprofits, foundations, and organizations doing a lot of valuable work across the country, including those with athletes who are doing a lot of things in the mental health space, financial literacy, STEM, you name it.
So I'm gonna ask you guys two questions. Number one, where did this passion come from? Let's inspire young people who maybe think I didn't know I could do that when I grew up. Let's talk about how you guys fell into your role. Then let's talk about the problem that we see in the space currently. Okay, how'd you guys end up where you are today?
You want to go first?
Sure. So, personally speaking, I had a mother figure who was really bad with money. And so, watching her financially struggle with money, it kind of just gave me perspective of who I did not want to become. And so, as I jumped into the rabbit hole of learning about financial literacy and the stock market and just different ways to invest and not be caught up in the rat race, I realized a lot of adults had issues with budgeting. And so, I started, I worked at Credit Suisse First Boston. I worked in managing wealth and different levels of success. And in that space and paradigm, I realized that there were multimillionaires and billionaires who had issues budgeting. And there were millionaires who were making, 10 million a month and somehow still financially struggling. And it just blew my mind. But then I realized a lot of people utilizing money as a coping mechanism. They utilize it to also make themselves feel better about some of the traumas or things that they lacked in their youth or even in their adulthood. And so I just wanted to be able to put a dent in that problem. So after leaving corporate, the journey started for me. We'll learn more about it a little bit later, but fast forward, now we're working. I was able to do a show with Disney as a finance expert for a show called Our America in the Black, and which is where Darrell from Microsoft Philanthropy team and I were able to connect. And now we're just taking it on more teams, more athletes, individuals, and influencers.
Thank you, Darrell. What about you?
I mean, for me, long stint in tech, at early at the age of 13, 14. And by 18, I was working full time in tech. But for me, I was the only one that looked like me. I was the only one as young as me. And then, from an educational path, it was very, untraditional. I don't even have any type of degree, self taught and everything in tech. So for me, my passion comes from, young people showing them that you can be where you want to be. You can have the success that you want. There's no perfect path. You may have some stumbles across the way, but it's still achievable. And then also just letting them know that you may find yourself wanting to go in the industry where you're the minority, and it could be because of not only race, but it could be because of age, it could be because of your gender. But you really can defy the odds because we live now much more in the world where diversity is being sought after in a lot of these companies and corporations. So it's really up to people like me and Dr. J to just really show people that there's a path forward.
I'm sort of semi speechless, and that doesn't happen to me very much because I'm media. But I'm so grateful that you took time to come and sit down with us this morning. I know, Dr. J, you could be at a Tom Brady breakfast right now, but you felt like speaking to the people about mental health and financial health was more important than chumming with Tom Brady, right?
Well, there's always going to be opportunities, and so the brunches are about a dime a dozen, in my personal opinion. If it's meant for me to be in that room, I will be. But I do know that this is a very important subject to me, and I love what SPN is working on. And honestly, it's the mental health aspect of what we do not pay attention to enough, especially in brown and black communities. A lot of women, when we look at the statistics, I feel like it's something that we don't discuss enough, and it's almost taboo to discuss feelings and emotions. And I've learned over the last few years, I used to think it was only a brown and black thing. Then I realized it was like culturally just around America, around the UK. we just kind of hide our issues, and it becomes microaggressions that just kind of build up. It becomes pent up frustrations. And when you realize it's not just a racial thing and it's like a everyone thing, it becomes more of an important conversation so that we can stop honestly suppressing our dramas and our traumas and realize that, hey, one person at a time, if we can just impact one person, then they might talk to a niece or a nephew or a neighbor's child and say, hey, I went to a therapist. Hey, I did meditation today and it helped me to relax or to clear my mind. And it's just one step at a time.
Yeah, and if I could just add to that, the part about not being talked about, and I know that's one of the things that we're really focused on is having those conversations and normalizing it. Not afraid to tell anyone that there was a dark period in my life when I suffered depression, and had to find those ways out of it. But even still to today, anxiety, a lot of it was just all the stuff on my plate. But then how do I deal with that? So I sit on the board of a mental health organization because, to her
Mm.
point, we just need to normalize these conversations. It's kind of baffling to me now that we're a society that have no issues with going to seek help around our physical appearance, and change and alter and do all types of things there, but scared to be able to go talk to someone when you're not feeling right up top. So
Yeah, guys, I love that. I know Roy has some questions, but I want to ask you to address these sort of root cause issues, right? Because I think these are universal. There is a root cause to the correlation between mental health and financial health. And, to your point, we're talking microaggression, we're talking race, we're talking gender, we're talking socioeconomic status. All of these things come into account, but we also have to look at the solution. And it cannot be just, hey, I don't know what's wrong with you. Just put your chin up, pull yourself up
Mhm.
by the bootstraps, and you have the power to change your life. I don't think it works like that. I'm going to ask both of you to chime in.
hey, I'm gonna go quick because she's definitely the expert here. But I would just say for me, for me, you're absolutely right. If you're not mentally well, you will never be able to do the things to achieve what you want financially. When you're not mental well, the most that you're doing is surviving. Because at the end of the day, okay, I gotta eat somehow, and I gotta have a roof, or I have to, take care of my kids. But there's a big difference between surviving and being financially stable and been building generational wealth, and that will not come until you're just happy, and you're feeling good about yourself.
One of the things I will say is that we always hear that, money cannot buy happiness, right? It can't, but at that same point, I also say that we realistically have to realize that we live in a society that if you do not have a certain level of wealth, you can be homeless. And who wants to be homeless, right? A lot of us, there's so many things that financially impact us when we do not have money, right? And then some of us becomes extreme, right? So we start to get money and then we end up being so excited about the money and we get lost in that tornado. And one of the biggest things I will say is that it's so important that when we talk about the problems and all of these factors, and we talk about money being a coping mechanism and not utilizing it as such and not keeping up with the Joneses, we talk about survivor's guilt, right? Sometimes you might leave a community and you feel like because you survived a situation where a lot of other people might have gone into poverty or entered the rat race and they're living check to check, and you're like, oh wow, I made it out. Let me go buy this person a house and a car, and then before you realize it, now you're in debt because you're trying to support everyone, and in reality, is not realistic, right? Even if you become a multimillionaire, a billionaire, you can't solve the world's problem by yourself, right? It's just you have to make sure your cup is full and you pour from your overflow, not from a half full cup. And that's something that we don't do enough, I think, is pouring from the overflow. We always try to, like, as soon as we see some water in our cup, we want to make sure everyone's drinking. But in reality, when that happens, it's like if you become a millionaire, you might be able to help more people. If you make sure your cup is full, you might be able to give more people water and sparingly make sure this person has a sip, that person has a sip. So that's one of the first things I would say. So since Darrell discussed one aspect of it, I'll give you some actionable things that you can do to actually help on a mental health space, financial health space, right? The first thing is do not have survivor's guilt. It's okay to put on your gas mask first, right?
Mm,
When we're on a
mm,
plane, they said if it goes down, put your air mask on first, right? It's important to put your mask on first. Make sure that you're mentally fine. Make sure you're financially fine. You don't have to have the most lavish lifestyle, but make sure you have a steady home and roof over your head. Make sure that you minimize the opportunities for other people to take that away from you, right? So make sure you have a cushion. The next thing I would tell you is meditate. Make time to clear your mind. Sometimes we hear meditate, we think that we have to think about nothing at all. One of my favorite things to do is a color meditation. In that color meditation, in 3 seconds, just to let you know what you could do, focus on your favorite color. And why is it your favorite color? Does it give you peace? Does it make you feel abundant? Does it make you feel make you think of a happy memory? And so when you're meditating, the goal sometimes is not to necessarily think about nothing, but to minimize how much traffic is going on in your mind. And so when you minimize the traffic in your mind, you can think about something simple like green is your favorite color because I'm wearing green today. And it makes me think of abundance and happiness and wealth. And it makes me think warm thoughts. And I think about Christmas and I love the holidays. And so when you think about stuff like that, when I'm meditating, I might focus on green. And as I start to think about a world problem or a business contract that I need to get out or my child who had a runny nose, I will stop and go, emerald green. And then I'll say, peace, happiness, abundance.
Mm,
And in that moment, I'm refocusing my brain to stop thinking about the world's problems and just for a few
mm.
seconds allow myself to be present and think about the good things that I can control or that I've enjoyed in my life. And we don't do that enough. So that's another tip before I leave you guys. And if you guys want more, please follow, reach out. But another tip would also be get a journal, and in your journal, it's gonna be a little bit different every day. Write at least one good thing that happened. It could be the simplest thing. Someone gave you a free scratch off, or someone gave you a free Starbucks coffee, or you woke up and the sun was shining and the first thought you thought was like, oh my god, it looks so beautiful. Whatever positive thought you had or good thing that happened to you that day, write it down, right? And when you're having a bad day where everything's going wrong, I need you to go back into that journal and look at all the positive moments that you had within that week, month, year, and look at all the successful things that you were able to accomplish. So these are some of the things that we can do to start working towards a positive mental health.
Well, I think you raised so many good points there, right? One of the things that having that spirit of gratitude and appreciation for everything that comes across our world. We look around the room here, right? We're live at Radio Row at the Super Bowl.
Yes.
There's incredible energy, incredible people in this room, and we get the opportunity to speak to them and learn about how they're changing communities. When you talk about that financial literacy and mental health.
Hmm.
It's interesting because as we travel the country and as we speak to young athletes, college athletes, pro athletes, former athletes, right, those are consistent throughout their life, right? Those are two of the top issues that we hear that they struggle with
Hmm.
at every level. And
Hmm.
so when we break it back down, we talk about, that appreciation, right? The financial literacy and happiness, a lot of that goes together because people often feel they need millions of dollars to be happy. And yet, right, all of the real research shows that once you get above, I think it's about $100,000, like there's very little incremental happiness once your basic needs are covered. So how do we start imparting that at, let's say, at a younger age, so that as kids are growing up? I remember when I was in high school, we had almost no financial literacy type of programming.
Yeah, I would say, even besides, financial literacy programs, it really can start in the home. If we think about, if lucky to have a two-parent household, those conversations really need to start there. There's a lot of
Hmm.
conversations around education and what the child should be doing. There
Hmm.
needs to be a little bit more conversations where that child is hearing from the parent of exactly their current financial situation in the house. As a parent, we try to protect our kids and we think we're doing well by not telling them, hey, we don't have enough money to do this. Here's the reasons why we don't have the money. I don't want them to worry about it. But we are missing very natural, organic opportunities for that child to start to pick up habits, and habits and learn and understand. And if we think about the cycle, at some point, you as a parent get old, and what do? You rely on your kids to take care of you. So the earlier that you can set them up for being financially stable, not only for them, but that will come back and support your entire generation.
So I
And
think what you're talking about,
mhm,
because I'm sorry, I'm going to ask you actually to chime in on this, okay? But I'm going to give
mhm,
you space. I apologize. When we're talking about relying on our children to take care of us, right? That's the heart of collaboration. And in this interview, I heard Microsoft, Disney, we're partners with the NFL, the athletes, right? My question, guys, is I believe the power of collaboration is so strong. From your perspective, the solution, preferred partners, people coming together. I talk a lot about equity and parity, right? So if we have companies like the NFL, a $17 billion business,
Mm.
Microsoft, Disney, and somebody who's surviving with two kids and $18,000 a year, how do we create
How did
parity?
I'll tell you real quick now. Let her go. Like that's one of the things I'm really focused on. You know, my work at Microsoft is collaborating with various entities and people who bring something together. So even in the examples that you gave, you know, you have the NFL who has so much brand visibility because of the players, because of what they're doing, and you know they're taking on a mammoth effort to do a lot of this social justice, just a lot of impact things in the community because they're so big and people think that they have to solve the problem. But at the end of the day, they're a lead, you know, so they need other partners to help. So I work closely with the NFL on a lot of the community activations and efforts where we can bring our piece to the table, which is technology, STEM, STEAM, education, our reach within the communities, etc. You know, that's our piece of the puzzle. And then when you look at a Disney, the world's largest media company, now we're able to do the storytelling of what's happening and what's happening so that guess what? Other people can collaborate and pour into it. And then, you know, we bring on, you know, experts like Dr. J who can, you know, really break down things in a really digestible manner. So no matter what age you are, you can really understand these concepts.
And so first, I will piggyback off of what Roy was asking and just put it out there. Like we have a finance curriculum that's gone into 400 schools, and one of the most important things that happens to us when we talk to our youth about money, especially when you talk to the younger ages, is first making sure they understand wants versus needs, and then realizing that they're never too young to start the budgeting, barter, and earning system, right? Because honestly, our 2-year-olds nowadays have such expensive requests. Some of these toys, the Hot Wheels, are $1 each time you go to the supermarket. Some of the toys are $5 to $10 for Barbie dolls. You know, the list continues. So depending what your child is spending on, every moment is a teachable moment. So it's important that we as parents, and as relatives, aunts, and maybe you have no children, but your neighbors' kids are like your children, to make sure we're not just giving them things, we allow them position to earn it, right? Also explaining to them like, hey, guess what? I gave you $20 earlier. So when we go to the supermarket, that's your budget to buy what you need and want. And don't think you're going to get another $20 by the end of that run, right? So that they can actually start to understand that money doesn't really grow on trees, in a sense of, yes, paper. Yes, paper comes from trees, but at that same point, it's not as easy to just print money and just wake up and be like, oh, I just won $1 million, and it's a snap of the finger. And then collaborative wise, that's also where your family and your unity around you, right, comes into place. So bringing it back to what you're talking about, Kayla, even down to educating children and adults. If now you have all these youth with the NIL contracts, and they're just waking up multimillionaires and millionaires. It's important that people like Darrell, myself, you, Roy, Kayla, everyone, we all come together and we're like, okay, I know this aspect of budgeting. I know this aspect of tax mitigation. I know this aspect of understanding that I have an entertainment attorney friend. Maybe I can just have that person come and talk to you. And this is what we've been doing with the NFL
Mhm.
and different teams and different individual athletes now. We're basically coming with them with the people that they need to know, right? To not just financially, but mentally be good, but financially be well, right? Because if you make $1 million and no one taught you the proper way to pay your taxes on it, Uncle Sam is going to come hitting that door, and you're going to be like, now you're in debt. You came from being rich to next minute you spent the money, you bought a house, you bought a car, and next thing you know, you're like, well, you still owe us $33,000. And you're like, I don't have $33,000. And guess what? The taxes, when they add the tax because you're taking too long to pay it back, you next thing you know, you owe $50,000, $45,000. Or even teaching them like, hey, you're leaving, you're entering college, credit cards, APRs, compound interest, and explaining to them, hey, if you're making minimum payments on something that has like a 24% APR, you're going to be paying back maybe double the triple what you borrowed. So having these conversations as a community and making sure that we are all on the same page and we all understand the rules of engagements and the mistakes that we've made are not perpetually being repeated. Yeah.
Guys, I'm sure that there were questions that we should have asked you that we didn't. And I want to hold space for that very vulnerably because what you're talking about is monumental. This isn't just like who are you cheering for in the Super Bowl. This is whole, and I mean HOLI, holistic. It's holistic, WHOLE. Like in every area, the work that you're doing affects everybody from, like you said, Dr. J, the 2-year-olds to grandma and grandpa, depending on people our age to take care of them. We're talking about schools, corporations. We're talking about so many different areas of life. What you're doing is bringing everybody together and
Yeah.
finding space for everyone.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter if they're gay or straight, rich or poor, black,
Mhm.
white, brown. None of that seems to matter in the
No.
work you're doing. But what is the most beautiful is it doesn't matter if you're rich or poor in the work you're doing because you're trying to level everyone up to wealth and generational
100%.
wealth. I heard generational wealth a couple of times,
Mm,
not just wealth for a minute, but wealth for perpetuity. Guys, what did we not ask
yes.
you that you would like to chime in? And we really want to get these discussions flowing and get the hearts of our listeners moving, also their minds.
Oh, wow. There's a lot there. I think maybe what just really comes to mind is just the how do we pour into a lot of these organizations in the community that's doing work. I love what you all are doing here with these cards for people to kind of write down their charitable causes that's important to them so that others can learn and pour into them. When we think about the change that we want to have, as a society, that needs to happen at the most hyper local community level, who are those entities that's providing the work? You have the large corporations who play a part, but at the end of the day, we're playing a part and we're working with those that are in those communities that's essentially working directly with the families. So I think it's really key that people find their ways, to volunteer. I say all the time, you have seasons in life, and you may not be at your season at the moment, but when your season comes, find that organization that you're passionate about. A lot of people reach out and say, hey, do you know an organization I should volunteer with? And I kind of tell them, well, what do you care about? You know what I mean? There's something that you care about. And trust me, there are so many organizations, if you go look for them, that are doing the work. And we really need to put our backs behind, especially the smaller ones. A lot of times I tell people about the work and immediately they say, oh, Boys and Girls Club. And I'm like, yes, okay, Boys and Girls Club is one, but that's the one that everybody knows. There's some that are at the neighborhood level that are impacting just as many kids that need the village to pour into them.
On my end, I would say that I think America and a lot of countries have a history of divide and conquer. And I think that we're in a
Mm,
space now is more about unite and conquer. We've tried divide and conquer for so long. Caucasian, Black, Native American. You've seen, so many disconnects in regards to land has been taken, people fighting back for land, oil rigging, you name it. There's been so many issues, rather it's political or global warming, you name it. We have so many factors separating us. One person thinks their problem is more important than the other person's problem. One culture is more important than the other culture. This culture stays together, this one doesn't. Honestly, even when we talk about things such as, black dollar and how long it stays in the community, then we go, did you look to see how many black businesses are in that community? Right? How many opportunities did these people have to create businesses? Who's their mentors? Do we have the other culture who might be successful in that particular field teaching them, like, okay, well, this is how you successfully run this empire? So we need to just have more galvanizing opportunities where we are uniting and conquering
mm,
together, because in reality, as a society, we can go so far if we were to just work together. And so really for me, I think my last note would really be like, it's time for us to just start working together. realizing that honestly, that collaborative work can get us so much further. And we can go fast, right? Individually, but we could go so much further as a society, as a people, if we were just to work together. And honestly, still stop dealing with all the separatism and realize that if the black dollar suffer, the Caucasian dollar, the Caucasian side suffers. If the Caucasian dollar suffer, the black dollar suffers. Everyone suffers if we're not all winning. And so honestly, that would be my thing for today is like, let's all win together.
That's powerful, Roy.
Well,
Thank you.
Dr. J. Darrell, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your insight and your wisdom. We share those values and philosophies, and that spirit of a collaboration is really the underpinning of Sports Philanthropy Network, of bringing people, bringing athletes, organizations, businesses together to build stronger, healthier, and more inclusive communities. And we look forward to partnering with each of you and each of your organizations to really make the world a better place, change lives, continue to improve. So thank you for sharing your time with us
Thank
today.
you.
On behalf of Kayla Bradham, I'm Roy Kessel with Sports Philanthropy Network, thanking our viewers and listeners for sharing this time with us, thanking Dr. J and Darrell for taking time out of their busy schedule and on a Super Bowl week and putting us above Tom Brady on the pedestal. So we like that, and we're reminding everybody to live generously. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.